Hi, it's Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, July 10th, and we're back with a Newsmakers TV weekly roundup of the news with Delaney Smith and Josh Molina. Thanks, guys. So, bad week for the pandemic, or actually a good week for the virus, bad week for us. The county health director, Van Do Reynoso, maybe I don't have her title right. Anyway, she was at the Board of Supervisors, gave kind of a grim roundup. She said our behavior must change. What are the details, Delaney, on what's going on with COVID?
Yeah, well, namely, I think what everyone's been noticing, if they've been following case counts at all, is that they've just exploded in recent days. And since COVID has a 14-day approximately, from what we know anyway, incubation period, it tends to be whenever we have a holiday weekend or one of these bigger events. Sorry about that.
Is that from McDonald's?
No, it's from Blunders in the Grass.
Oh, okay. Just check.
Jerry, I am healthy.
Young people don't eat at McDonald's, Jerry.
Huh? I'm
People
dying.
in their 20s don't eat at
I'm dying to
McDonald's.
go to McDonald's. That's what I thought. I'm sorry. So people are noticing that the numbers are exploding. I understand, Delaney.
They are. And since most of our viewers are from Santa Barbara City, even Santa Barbara City, which is not one of the major hotspots in our county, in the last 2 weeks, cases have increased by 115%, like daily case counts, I mean.
And this isn't just because we're doing more testing. I mean,
No, it's not just because we're doing more testing. And the testing thing, actually, I think I want to get into it a little bit because I think that a lot of people in the public are a little bit confused about this. With the 3 testing sites that we have that are provided by the state and ran by the state, they are run kind of poorly, and they're so impacted that the waiting time for results is 6 to 8 days. So what happens is that the county gets kind of inundated with data dumps. Like, they won't really get any information from these testing for days at a time because there's such a big backup with the state. And then they'll just get hundreds of positive or negative cases, like boom, all at one time consistently. So that is part of the reason we're seeing these big explosions, but that's not the only reason why. The reason why is like Dr. Do Reynoso said, it's a behavior issue. People are feeling a lot more comfortable not wearing their masks and kind of chilling out on COVID precautions, maybe because it's getting hotter, maybe just because it's been months into this now and people are just tired of it, but people aren't listening as well, and it's starting to really show. And then hospitalizations is the bigger kind of way to prove that it's not just about these big data dumps, right? Hospitalizations are consistent no matter what. And our hospitalizations are at an all-time high. Our county's capacity to withstand a surge, if there were a surge of COVID cases, is that we only have, I believe it's 33% of our hospital beds available, which is not enough. That's what's put us on the state watch list, is that at any time, if we did have a surge, I don't know where those patients would go because there's probably not enough beds at this point.
Yeah. And can we tell yet, or is this coming out in the data, whether the demographics of the people who are testing positive now are different than the demographics at the beginning? Because it seems like we're moving away from this, it's all just a bunch of old people with comorbidities who we should put on ice floes anyway thing.
You're so bitter about that.
I'm extremely bitter about it. I haven't been out in months. Are you kidding me? But I'm not bitter. I never complain either. But it is changing, isn't it?
It is changing. We're definitely seeing more young people. And for a while, for the bulk of this, the group that had, at least in our county, the age demographic group that had the most cases was people between like the ages of like 30 to like 59, actually, like not super old or incredibly young either. But we are starting to see younger cases, teenagers, minors getting COVID, and young adults getting COVID. Some people are attributing that to parties or young people being irresponsible. I think that's largely anecdotal, though. But based off of contact tracing, our county's contact tracers have found that roughly only 1% of all cases contracted were contracted from outside of the county. And there's a portion of them, like 30-something%, that are contracted from person to person, like they confirmed that a person who already had COVID came into contact with them and was pretty likely to be where they got it from. But then all the rest of the cases are called community spread, which means it came somewhere in the community of Santa Barbara, but no one knows where. We don't know if it's a person or a surface or whatever. So it doesn't really have to do with parties. It's kind of
Josh,
not.
isn't it mostly to do with reopening State Street and the demand for small business to open that was led by a news hall?
I thought we were going to talk about Buster Posey sitting out the 2020 season, Jerry.
Well, he's not going to be the only one. Giants are still tied for first in that division, Josh. You know, that season, it's going to last about 4 days, and then everybody's going to have COVID, and it's not going to happen. But seriously, I mean, it is. I mean, the surge came. Well, there were two things. There were the marches, and there was the reopening of State Street, essentially, a reopening of commerce. And I mean, I'm wondering, is there anybody saying, well, we're going to close it all down now, or are they just reacting to whatever the governor has on his mind at any given moment? What's the scene on
well, my perception is that politics have taken over the whole thing in terms of the communication, and things have changed so much, and you really can't get straight answers when you ask them that question. If you ask them, what is the source? Is it the protests? Is it the opening of State Street? Is it the large gatherings? They'll say that we don't know. We can't pinpoint it to that specifically. There's no connection. It's just very confusing because, you know, when I covered the protests locally, pretty much everybody had a mask on. So they weren't 6 feet apart, but they did have masks on. And the opening of State Street, it's just like on its face, okay, I get it. We want outdoor dining. But on its face, why would you open State Street and invite a large crowd of people to convene and gather at a time we have a global pandemic? Those two things do not go together.
And
it's one thing if you have
masks are not much in evidence on State Street, Josh. I wouldn't know.
When I'm out there, there's a lot of people who don't have masks because people are getting mixed messages. There are people who feel if you're outdoors, you don't need a mask. And that's because government officials have said that. But then other government officials say you need a mask everywhere you go. So it's very confusing. Obviously, politics are underneath all of this. If you're somebody who believes the government's intruding on your civil liberties, then just out of principle, you're not going to wear your mask because you're outdoors. And then there are others who are trying to do the right thing, but they're getting conflicting information all the time. You know, it doesn't spread outdoors. Oh, wait, we're going to close the beaches. It doesn't spread outdoors. Oh, we're going to have outdoor dining and we're going to open up State Street, but everybody has to wear a mask and make sure that everybody's following the rules. It's very confusing for people to be able to understand what to do. And
so what are businesses doing now? You had in your business column this week, another retail outlet, Sur La Table, which I guess is a chain, but they're closing down. And so what are the restaurants and what are the bars doing with the latest alleged information from our leaders?
Well, obviously, they're not happy with having to take the step back. If you were to be on State Street right now, and I'm sure you've seen the photos, but the 500 block has a lot of outdoor seating. Basically, all the seating is out on State Street. And it's kind of a cool thing to be eating outdoors. I think they're obviously concerned and they're looking at these numbers and they're trying to say, well, are we really looking at the data in the right way? Yes, we have higher hospitalizations. Where are the hospitalizations? Where are the cases at? And are we punishing Santa Barbara and downtown when it's really a North County problem? And so this is the problem with all of this, is that everybody's information keeps changing. And I don't expect public health to have a crystal ball, but they're always they have different messages, and the messages change all the time. And so it's hard for people to be able to adjust and understand what's going on. Obviously, it looks like we're going back. It looks like the next stage is going to be no more indoor dining. Or, you know, we have that, but it looks like we're going to be going back even further to where we were at. And everybody's guarding against that. But it's hard to know. Jerry, you've been in your house. If you were to go downtown right now, you would be stunned. You would be amazed. There are so many people downtown without masks.
Jerry, you're a shut-in, and so let me tell you what the world out there is like. So Delaney, the other piece of this, Josh, I want to get back to State Street, but let me ask Delaney this: is the return to schools? And you know, I hate to blame everything on Trump, but you know, the mixed messaging starts with the federal government, and it just goes right downhill all the way here. And I do kind of feel for the local officials who are trying to interpret this. And Greg Hart particularly looked a little frustrated based on your story. You know, everybody leaning on him and yelling at him to get things right. He's communicating with the state. He's communicating with feds.
Right. I was actually going to mention Greg. I just talked to him right before this about that exact topic right before this. Yeah, a lot of the issue is that things are it's from the top down, and I didn't perceive the way that our public health department and Greg Hart was talking. I didn't take it as though they were trying to deflect the blame or the responsibility around these mixed messages, but they were admitting that they are pretty confused themselves. You know, what you're just saying, that they can have a pretty solid, oh, this is what it is on Thursday, and then they wake up Friday morning and everything is different, and they have to somehow communicate it to the public super rapidly, and it doesn't really work out very well. So yeah, and that goes straight back to State Street with what you were asking Josh about earlier. At that same meeting, so many different, especially small business owners, so came up and were like, look, we know that you guys are just trying to give us the information you have at the time when it comes out, but it's just not really possible for these small businesses to go back and forth, and you know, bars to do everything they can to meet the bare minimum, not even meet the bare minimum, go above and beyond in some cases to be able to reopen their business, and then within days it's shut down again, but then within 24 hours it's reopened back up again. And you know, a lot of people pretty much admitted, you know, they're not going to survive this, and that's just it. They're not going to survive this. And I think that the local county government is kind of in the same boat as far as they don't really know what to do. If you talk to any of them one-on-one outside of the meetings, they're like, look, dude, we're just getting, this stuff is just flying at us, and we're just taking it and trying really hard, and basically we have no idea what's going. So anyway, moving into schools though.
Oh, wait, let me just, let's close on State Street, and then I want to go, excuse me. So Josh, the one thing that seems consistent is that everybody's kind of judging the pedestrian mall State Street as a success. And Jason, the economic development director, I guess, said this week that he's going to recommend that it stay that way for how long? So is it being judged a success because, gee, we need something amid this pandemic, or is it being judged more broadly that this is exactly what we should have done 10 or 15 years ago?
Well, again, we have people in different roles saying different things. He's an economic development manager. So he's coming in to figure out a way to help businesses. And what he's supporting is the opening of State Street. So there's lots of activity downtown. There's more activity today during the pandemic on State Street than there was 6 months ago, a year ago. There's more activity now than there has been in decades. Okay, so that's a success because there's vibrancy. And people he's not a science guy. What?
And presumably people are spending money down there.
Yes, and he's not a science guy though. At the same time, I was there on Saturday, and was it 4th of July? Yeah. And so they put up the kiosks, like mandatory masks required, a number of people walked by and they said, "Would you like a mask?" And they said no, and they let them go. Okay, so enforcement is also an issue. I don't think we want to be writing tickets or citations, but if you don't want to wear a mask, and if you are offered a mask and you say no, but you can still mingle with everybody else, that's an issue that the city needs to work out in terms of mixed messaging.
Well, the
So
city
we
has,
need to,
has the city passed, I guess, has the city passed a mask ordinance specifically, or we're just going
no.
off state order?
Yeah, there's no specific city mask ordinance. That's the thing, is that you know, the local people will say, "Oh, it's top down, it's top down." They don't have the right to make anything less than the governor's order, but they do have the right to make things more restrictive. And that whole point is lost on them because they are concerned. They're concerned about going too far. They're concerned about who's going to be mad at them politically, but there's nothing stopping them from doing this. And my whole point is, either we live in a global pandemic and shut everything down, or we don't. But this in the middle thing, this mixed messaging, is just
crazy.
It just creates opportunity for this political argument, which is not helpful at all.
Yeah, well, and you know, again, it's being politicized at every point. And the other thing is, you know, this notion that, oh, you know, because you shut everything down, that's what's wrecking the economy. What's wrecking the economy is the virus. I mean, it's the pandemic itself. And until that gets lost, you're absolutely right. The cart's going before the horse. And then on the schools, Delaney, that we did see yet another example of this, where you got Trump and Betsy DeVos in the White House saying, we demand that all schools reopen. You know, fortunately, we do have local control of schools in the United States of America still. And so it's a very local choice. But I was struck, when I talked to Laura about Santa Barbara, and I talked to Luz about Goleta, and Anthony about Montecito. They're all kind of on different tracks, and they're all doing different things. Is anybody going to listen to Trump, or is that just totally irrelevant, do you think?
I honestly think that's totally irrelevant. We're really fortunate in this area that is totally irrelevant, because it probably will have some influence in other communities. But yeah, at least for Santa Barbara Unified, they're going forward with building their various hybrid models this summer. They're going forward with strengthening distance education. And then when August comes around, if it's entirely possible to be in person, it will be. If not, the projects of the summer or what are going to be deployed. And that's that. Doesn't really matter what Trump says.
Is Hilda on the job? Is Hilda Maldonado now here, the new?
Yeah, she's on the job now. And meetings have slowed down because it's the summer, so we're kind of seeing less of what's going on, particularly because these meetings where they are building these models to go back to school are not open to the public meetings. They're cabinet meetings. But Hilda is in on that. It's now all under her purview how things will move forward as we get closer to August.
So
yeah.
Santa Barbara Unified is talking about a hybrid model. Montecito Union is all set to go back full bore classroom.
Right. But they have less students, and they have, bigger classrooms, and they have the space for that. And they have way more funding per child than I think actually they have more funding per child than any district in this entire state. So we can't really compare ourselves to them. But
going to have a meeting on different scenarios, I think on the 15th or 16th, that's coming up. So, again, nobody knows nothing, basically, is what's happening. And then, Josh, just a transition back to the protest we were talking about. One of the demands was for a police review board, Santa Barbara Police Department. So I guess the city attorney has now come out with a memorandum that kind of outlining the different options. What's the status of that?
Well, he released the the staff report on July 3rd, the Friday before the 4th of July holiday, 2 weeks before the meeting. And it's an unusual step to release a staff report that early because of all the community interest, though he did. And it's basically outlining different methods, policies, as they're called, for how to review the police department and their use of force. And so basically he looked at different options where you have an external, or he outlined the ways it works in other cities, whether you have an external organization, whether you have an internal organization, or you have a hybrid model for reviewing complaints about force. And so the city council is going to have to debate that and talk about that and figure it out. I mean, there's not a lot in the report yet about what the city of Santa Barbara wants to do. It's basically, here are options, city council. What direction do you think we should go?
You know, they had how many weeks in a row there was hours and hours of testimony about Black Lives Matter's issues. Are they getting heavily lobbied on this by anybody?
Well, the Black Lives Matter movement has slowed down a little bit. I mean, they have gotten a lot of their demands met, and they've got a lot of the resolutions passed, and so they've been acknowledged. They're still going to keep the pressure on the city with the Civilian Review Board under the arm of Healing Justice Santa Barbara. So yeah, they're going to still put the pressure. It's not that intense weekly meeting kind of pressure, but I think there's an acknowledgement that, hey, the city wants to do something and they're going to keep a close eye on it.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I did some reporting on police review boards around the country, and it's really complicated. And with all due respect to our city council, it doesn't seem to me that, you know, at a meeting, they can have this staff report and say, okay, this is what we got to do. It seems like there really needs to be much more community outreach about this and inviting other people's opinions or forming a group or something. I don't know. I just think it's headed for, you know, the dustbin of history if they just go, yeah, we'll take two of the ones from, you know, option 2 and one from option 3.
Well, the city council, the 7 of them are not qualified to make the decision on their own. They're not driving the bus. Some of them are more qualified than others. It really needs to be a large community input process where the community drives the bus, because if we have them just sort of deciding based off of what the last person they spoke to told them, which is unfortunately what some of them do, it will be a disaster. So they need to definitely open it up and get widespread community input and have the community shape it.
All right, let's talk about politics for a minute. There are 3 seats up for the Santa Barbara Unified School District. Delaney, do you have any information that Jackie Reed and Wendy Sims Moden and Laura Kepps are not running? It seems likely that they are.
Yeah, no, I don't have any confirmation that they are not running. I have confirmation that they're not going to be running unopposed.
Who else is running?
I can't give names. But I can say that people from Fair Education, you can expect some candidates from Fair Education for sure.
Are they going to put up a slate of 3, do you think?
I don't know if they'll put up a slate of 3. I couldn't answer that, honestly. I don't know. But I know that all 3 of the open seats are not going to be rerunning unopposed, and there's going to be definitely some more conservative, even not that this is a partisan race, but that there's going to be some more conservative blood running from what we already see.
What's that? All right. Is that going to, I think it was interesting, Josh, that the deadline for filing is August 7th, I think. And the Democratic Party has put their endorsement meeting for that one on August 6th, which is, gee, what a good idea to wait till the end. I think we're getting through to Gail Teton Landis on that point. But when you go on this call that Hal Conklin does every week with people on the city, that Jason Harris, you got your story on him this week. Is Hal running for sure against Kathy, or running for mayor at least? Do you have any doubt that he's running?
He's acting like he's running. I think if you asked him, at least publicly, you know, on the record, he'll say, "Oh, it's too early for me to say that." But he's certainly acting like he's running. He's certainly positioning himself as sort of a face for the business community. And I do have to say that he does have a way of making everybody feel part of the conversation at these meetings. He's very intelligent and sophisticated, and he's got a way of including you without making you feel like you're less knowledgeable. And so he does have that leadership quality and that leadership trait that I think will make people feel included. And it's maybe why people like Laura Capps and Doss Williams endorsed him for mayor when he ran. I think the challenge with him is that although people acknowledge that, is he the right guy in the right moment at the right time? And should there be somebody generationally who's different than him, who can sort of drive the bus? And in other words, not somebody who's led in the past, but somebody who can lead.
Yeah, now. No, he's definitely the Joe Biden of Santa Barbara. I mean, he'd be coming in. Do either of you hear anything about Jason Dominguez running for mayor? Have you got that rumor?
I have heard that rumor that he's going to run for mayor and challenge Kathy. And a year ago, like, he would have been a fool to do that. Now it would be a fantastic race to cover.
Yeah, Kathy's kind of gotten less and less visible. And the other thing that you wrote about the grand jury report on cannabis, Delaney, which is pretty damning for Doss Williams and Steve Lavanino and the origins of the ordinance. And now people are saying, well, I think Doss is going to be recalled, which is just, to me, silly. But have you heard that going around?
That Doss is going to be recalled, or that his endorsement by the Independent is going to be recalled? Because that's
I didn't.
You haven't heard that?
What's up with that?
Oh, okay, I didn't know if you had heard that one. No, that's a real effort.
Is it really?
Yeah. It is. Obviously, I have no control of it. I am a, tiny little reporter at the bottom of the rung here. But that is, there are calls to, for the Independent to retract its endorsement of Doss Williams.
Wow.
And formally post something saying that the cannabis report was so damning that we should retract our endorsement. I don't foresee Marianne wanting to do that, but that is definitely a movement that is starting. Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
I don't think Doss is going to be recalled either, though, just to answer that.
I hear a lot of chatter about it, and it's just, he would win 2-1, and then he could be a victim, which is, that would make him happy too, because he could whine some. But Josh, who you got on the podcast this week?
What'd you say? Sorry.
Podcast.
Who you got on the podcast this week?
Well, I've got a great podcast this week. I did an hour-long interview with Sergeant Rashawn Drayton, who's one of a handful of Black Santa Barbara Police Department officers. So we sat down and talked about what it's like to be a Black police officer in Santa Barbara. We talked about the national issues. He's about my age, so we talked about fatherhood, and we started the same year, and how I used to cover City Hall in the back of the room, and he was the cop who was doing security, or covering the meetings for the mayor and the council. And so we talked about
a lot of stop and frisk on you, or
what? Did you stop and frisk me?
Stop and frisk on you. You look kind of suspicious to me, Stan.
We haven't gotten that far. No, that hasn't happened. Yeah.
All right. And what's how do people find the podcast again?
SantaBarbaraTalks.com. And by the way, since you brought up education, I got a great one with Fran Wagneck, and she talked about all her views, and basically it's a story of how she became the person that she is and the challenges she's overcome. And she wasn't always what people would call the social justice advocate that she is now. You know, she had a journey, she had a process. She's from Texas, and she has her own story of where she came out to where she's at right now.
And Fran is kind of the key person in figuring out what the logistics of how people are going to go back to school. Yes, Delaney, is that not true?
Oh yeah, she's one of those key people. Yes.
Yeah. Friends good. All right, we got to close. Thanks, Josh, Molina, Delaney Smith, and thank you all for watching. We'll be back next Friday with another edition of Newsmakers TV. See ya.
Thank you.